I call to order the September 9th, 2024 Henderson County Board of Education meeting. Please rise for the presentation of colors, Pledge of Allegiance, and a moment of silence, please. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the presentation of colors by the North Henderson High School Junior ROTC under the leadership of Colonel Eric Runquist. Nice job. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. And during this time, please feel free to offer your silent prayers or thoughts in support of the Henderson County Public Schools or engage in silent reflection. Thank you. You may be seated. Take a look at your agenda. For a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Agenda is approved. Recognitions, Mr. Garrett.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. It's always a pleasure to come through and recognize some of our great happenings around the district. I thought I would take a little moment, though, before we started that and kind of address a couple of things from Thursday and Friday, the incident that happened at West Henderson High School. Really want to say thank you to the quick action of our administrators at West Henderson to deal with that situation at the most inopportune time when school was being released and all the traffic was there. Cannot say enough about our Henderson County Sheriff's officers, the school resource officer who was on campus, and the quick response that we received that allowed that to maintain an isolated incident. It was an incident between two students that did not spread, and we're grateful for that. And also the extra show of support that we received from emergency management throughout that process. And on Friday, where they came out and really support our schools, support our students. We're very blessed in this community to have that type of community support. Also, I know that communication can sometimes be frustrating, and we want to make sure we get the right information out there. So we will use this opportunity as we go back and revisit the actions and see how we can improve on those communications and some of those things that come up anytime that you have incidences that pop up. But what I do want to emphasize is that the quick actions of our folks on that campus really allowed this to maintain an isolated stance rather than being spread. I do hope that folks will help us when they get information of things that may or may not be happening at schools and contact those schools directly, contact those officers directly, and contact my office directly. My email is really easy, mrgarrett@hcpsnc.org. And I don't have the phone number here memorized, but we're really easy to find. So
Okay, say that email address again a little slower.
mrgarrett@hcpsnc.org. And I think they have my ugly picture on the website somewhere too, where you can find it. I'm not sure. But just wanted to say thank you to everybody who acted so well, and also to our parents for trusting us through that process. And certainly our thoughts and prayers are with the families, and our thoughts and prayers with everybody as we continue through the school year. We've had a great start, and we want to continue that.
I appreciate you saying that, and I think you got some other recognition, so.
All right, we've got a lot to share this evening. First of all, it is my pleasure to call up Dr. John Medeiros, who's going to share with us about one of his students who gained national recognition over the summer. And it's a student who you saw back in the spring, but when he went to national competition, he brought home some hardware, right, Dr. Medeiros?
That's right. Brandon, why don't you come up here with me? So this young man, Brandon Hamlin, is an exemplary student for us here at Rugby. He entered into the North Carolina State Conference Skills USA competition for T-shirt design and won first place in the state of North Carolina, which gave him the opportunity to compete at the national level, where he earned bronze. We are very proud of him, and Brandon, just, I will also add, stands as a consistent model of the kind of character and excellence we want among our students at Rugby. So if you would just join me in giving this young man a big round of applause for his accomplishment.
Well, before you do that, let's see what you got. Yeah.
Turn around.
Well done.
And us too. I want to turn around.
Take it around.
Oh, yeah.
Walk around, show them there.
That's great. Good job.
So one of the things we've got is a certificate, and also new this year, we have challenge coins that we're going to give everyone who we honor, and I think that would fit really nicely in that shadow box somewhere, right? Like every meeting, this is a great photo op if you want one. Come on up.
Can I get one of you and him too?
Good job, sir.
Give you this. This is one of the pins that is.
It's a North Carolina pin.
Yeah. From state.
Well, thank you for that. Throw that on in just a minute. Next up, we'd like to call on Mr. Luke Manuel, principal at West Henderson High School, to share about some other national placers from the summertime.
I was just telling him, great job, because that's also one of my teachers at my school, Ms. Courtney Maddox, and teaches my daughter as well, so congratulations to them. I want to say good afternoon and thank you to members of our leadership team and the school board members for having us today. This past summer, 4 of our outstanding students from our West Henderson FCCLA chapter, along with their teacher Brittany Willis, attended the national conference in Seattle, Washington. They represented us very well, and I would like to recognize them at this time if they could please come forward. First, we have Kai Hendricks, who was a top 10 finalist in the repurpose and redesign event, transforming a wheelbarrow into a chair with handmade cushions from repurposed materials. So great job to Kai. Next, we have Linda Bryant, who earned a gold medal in the job interview event, impressing judges with her, get this, 30-page portfolio in interview skills. So congratulations to Linda. Next, we have Monica Fuentes, who received a bronze certificate in the Public Policy Advocate event. She advocated for increase and varied physical educations in our schools. Congratulations to Monica. And finally, we have Sarah Kim. Sarah is the North Carolina FCCLA State Vice Presidential candidate for the national programs. She played a key role at nationals, attending business sessions and voting on important bylaws and representing us with the officer candidates. So congratulations to Sarah Kim as well.
Great.
Thank you, guys.
Any parents? Any parents?
Would you like to recognize Ms. Willis very quickly?
Miss Willis told me earlier today she didn't want to come up. She's been shy today, so, but Miss Willis is back over there. And
So
she's
Ms.
a,
Willis, please stand. Stand. We won't make you come up.
she was
but
like, please
stand.
don't call me that. But she's an excellent person to teach with.
Next, it's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Kirby Farley, who's going to share about one of her teachers and the Keenan Fellows Program.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. It's my pleasure to recognize Henderson County Career Academy Family and Consumer Sciences teacher, Christine Corin. Ms. Corin was selected as a Keenan Fellow this past year and spent her summer learning about computational thinking during her internship at Harrah's Cherokee Resort. We are really proud of her.
So those of you that were listening heard right. She volunteered to go think about computational thinking in the summertime.
They picked me.
They did. They picked you. They
I didn't
picked.
just go to the casino.
That's right. Well, that token will not work in the casino, so don't try. Or a drink machine, so. Harrison County Public Schools was very fortunate to have two teachers involved in the Keenan Fellows Program this summer. So I'm going to call up Ms. Laura Brugger to share about our Hendersonville High School nominee and honoree.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to recognize one of my teachers. It's with a great pride that I present Mr. Adam Chacon. He is one of our Spanish teachers at Hendersonville High School, who was also named a Keenan Fellow and went this summer and did great things and will return. So we're very proud of him and fortunate to have him as a teacher at Hendersonville High. So, thank you.
One thing while the photographs are taking place, I ran into at a meeting about a week and a half ago, the director of the Keenan program, and he was just really bragging on Henderson County Public Schools and the quality of educators that have participated in their Keenan program over the years. So you've got a lot to be proud of as a board with how well our teachers are representing you and our entire district statewide, not just here locally. And now, the honoree we were going to honor last month, but who was under the weather. So we're going to honor Deputy Sean Metcalf. I'm going to call on Chief Deputy David Mahoney, Captain Darren Whitaker, and retired Captain Tim Griffin to come up, or whichever one of those three is here. All of them. Awesome. I made sure to let them know you're retired.
Thank you very much.
You're here because you want to be, and we
Yes, sir.
appreciate
Yes,
that.
sir. Roll call. Proud of it.
What I would love for one of you gentlemen to do is just kind of share briefly about the North Carolina Association of School Resource Officers Award of the Year that Deputy Metcalf earned. You can even make it up as you go. We won't know.
Watch your mouth. You haven't got your coin yet. Every year they award an award to the outstanding SRO of North Carolina, and this year Deputy Metcalf got that, and we were very, very proud of him. Again, he does a wonderful job. Different school this year is going to do just as good a job, and as a retired staff, and I'm sure the staff that's still in place, very proud of him, and just want to give him congratulations.
So Deputy Metcalf, I know that this was earned while serving Edneyville.
Yes, sir.
And I was fussing at the sheriff for moving everybody around because you've got me confused when I go into schools this year because you're in a little bit different color and different place, but we know you'll do a great, great job. As we know, Deputy Metcalf was instrumental in an event that happened last year where his quick, proactive thinking kept something that could have been really, really bad happening on one of our campuses. And, you know, it wasn't just his action, it was his knowledge of the community, his knowledge of his parents, and most of all, his relationship and knowledge of his kids. And that's what I'm most grateful for with the school resource officer program that we have, the entire division. But certainly this is your moment. We know that it is more than well-deserved. I know that you don't like the spotlight, but we're making you take it today. So we're going to get a picture. We want to share this certificate and let you be the first sheriff's employee who has one of our challenge coins there.
Thank you, sir.
So congratulations.
Hey, we're done.
That's right. And Captain Griffin, he does back the correct orange from what I understand as well, correct?
I'll let you slide because I'm retired now. So.
He wouldn't have wore that orange last week.
You what, sir?
He wouldn't have wore that orange last week.
Oh, I would have. I'm still wearing it.
You gotta be committed.
Got to be committed.
Big orange.
Yeah.
Soon when we blame for everybody changing schools.
Great job.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for always indulging us at the first of our meetings so that we can celebrate the great things going on across the district, and more importantly, the great people that we have, whether that be community partner, staff, or students. So thank you and congratulations to everyone once again.
That was about 15 minutes of recognition, so that was good. It's always good to have a long recognition list. Next, we have program highlights. Dr. Marlowe?
Good afternoon. My name is Simone Wertenberger. I'm the Director of ESL and Migrant Education. I also support dual language and world languages, and we are going to talk about the Regional Training Center status. I hate having my back to y'all. I apologize. We will be pretty quickly going through. I have a couple folks who are here to, here we go. We're good? Okay. So I'll start with identifying what Project GLAD stands for, which is Guided Language Acquisition Design. Those of you who have been on the board before, remember when we started this long process about 10 years ago. I'm really hoping the slides will advance so that I can, oh, I have a clicker, sorry. There we go. Okay, so Guided Language Acquisition Design and why that is important. When we think about Henderson County Public Schools, all of the students in our care are academic language learners, right? School language is very different from home language necessarily, and we want them to be using academic discourse. We want everybody to have that rigorous discussion. As well, roughly 25 to 30% of our students are coming from multilingual households who may need additional support to be able to access the instruction that is delivered in English. So that's why Project GLAD is important. Project GLAD is a professional development model. It is a set of strategies that is delivered to teachers over a 6-day period, 2 days of theory and research, and then 4 days in a classroom watching master teachers use the strategies, and then spending the afternoons of those demonstration days in guided planning to make sure that what we are delivering to students is intentional and is going to raise the level of rigor for any student that's in our care. So take a moment and, well, I guess I'll read it to you. Henderson County Public Schools has partnered with OCDE, which is Orange County Department of Education, Project GLAD, and we are now a certified regional training center. Project GLAD is a rigorous professional development model, all based on brain research, cultural responsiveness, and language acquisition, intended to design and craft intentional opportunities. While it is beneficial for all of our students who are academic language learners, it is essential for our multilingual learners. Teachers who have been through the training consistently speak of it as one of the most powerful professional development events that they have experienced. We have teachers who are first-year teachers who are like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I needed to start the year. And we have end-of-career teachers who say, I might just stay a few more years now that I've had this experience. One of the outcomes of the 6 days is to find the joy and creativity in teaching. Okay, so we've got a couple of quotes there from teachers that have been through this professional development. And I don't know if we're going to get to play the video or not. Probably not. Okay, maybe. This is like last week or so. This is a first grade group. Maybe, I'm sorry, we should have. So let me tell, so a lot of what is involved in Project GLAD is making sure that students are feeling and hearing the language in their mouth. So we're not sitting silently waiting for it to find its way into our brain. We are repeating, we are using chants, we are using lots and lots of different ways to make sure that the students are doing the heavy lifting, right? Not the sage on a stage teaching, but students from K all the way through 12 are involved in the language of learning, the language of rigor, the language of the academics. We'll try one more time, and if not, then we'll just move on. Nope, it's okay. The next slide is a picture of Caroline Hakel, who is a first grade teacher at Upward Elementary. I think she is a B, I'm looking around like somebody's gonna know it. She's a 4th year teacher, but she's absolutely amazing, and she took the training her first year of teaching. And this is just a little blurb of where she is explaining how beneficial it has been, how well it works with the reading curriculum. This is not instead of, this is to support any curriculum that has been chosen. And just talked about how it really helped her connect with her students and put, I don't want to say put the work on the students, but really engage the students in a way that they're doing the heavy lifting. Okay? And so this regional training center, I wanted to give you a broad understanding of what Project GLAD is, but this is kind of the end, not the end, but the culmination of many years of work. In 2013, Project GLAD was brought to Western North Carolina through RESA. I, at the time, was an ESL teacher and was invited to participate in that training in that capacity. It very quickly was clear that that was something that our county needed to support as our multilingual learner community grows, as well as our economically disadvantaged community is still a part of our teaching and learning and who we support. At that time, Henderson County decided to create our own trainers because it was very expensive to have the folks from California come along. So over the years, we have grown in our capacity to deliver that instruction, but also grown in the demand. So most schools have at least a core of teachers who are Project GLAD trained, and that's all the way up through high school. We've done 2 or 3 demos at East Henderson High. We did a demo this summer at Hendersonville High. We've been in all the middle schools, most of the elementary schools. So we were quickly outstripping our ability to deliver that professional development. Because the second group of trainers that came on board, 2 of them are now principals. So Anna, is that my next slide? Yes. So originally, Omar and I were trainers. We added Ann Corbin and Anna Lord as trainers. Omar is now an AP. Anna is now an AP because great teachers make great principals. And when you have somebody who's an instructional leader at the front, then we can really dive into what does good instruction look like? What do we want to pull out of this? But now that they're principals, it's really hard to get them out of their buildings to do training. So we decided, with the support of a grant from the Dogwood Foundation, to become a regional training center, which means now, instead of sending people to California to get trained, we can train them here. But the real win-win is we have been granted the license and the rights to do that for other districts. So where before, other districts were all kind of trying to bring the folks from California or sending people to New Mexico, which is the nearest place to get that training. We are now one of 2 regional training centers east of the Mississippi. And we have been given the opportunity to train others, and then it is I'm gonna mess it up, a cost recovery model. So we will not profit from this, but we are allowed to charge in the cost recovery model amount to make sure that we can take care of our children and students first, if that makes sense. So we have Ann Corbin with us, she came, I'm trying to remember, 5 or 8 years ago when we first got 2 more trainers on board. And then also Bridget Grant is one of our first, they will be the first, Bridget Grant and Nikki Conti will be our first 2 trained in Henderson County trainers. So then they will be able to go out and deliver this professional development at the school level, which means fewer subs, fewer traveling. So it's both a fiscally responsible decision, but it's also the right decision given the community that we serve. Yes. Do you want to see the videos? Sure. The kids? Okay.
This chant is called Characters Here and There. Characters here, characters there. Characters, characters everywhere. Naughty characters pretending. Greedy characters quarreling. Startled characters sobbing. And satisfied characters pondering. Characters within a plot. Characters across fictional stories. Characters in a folk tale. And characters throughout the world. Characters here, characters there. Characters, characters everywhere. Characters, characters, characters.
Okay, so you can see that is very rigorous language. Those are first graders, and that was taken a couple of weeks ago. So it says first semester of first grade, and they are able to use, perhaps not read, but use correctly the vocabulary that they're going to be encountering when they explore the state standards. And they'll chant that, so instead of playing Duck, Duck, Goose for 5 minutes before going out to recess, which they don't do, but instead of doing something else, when you have, 45 seconds of downtime, this is a great activity, like a sponge activity, to pull in extra language that's really rigorous. And then if you don't mind,
This program has helped immensely creating accessible ways for these kiddos to get vocabulary that they need and grade level content in a whole group setting. And not only does it affect those kids specifically, but all students need access to language, and it's just fun. It's a good time. So we really love it.
So with that, I think if you go to, so we are now on the National Training Center website. So the National Training Center is in California. I know that's difficult to read, but we are one of 4 regional training centers. And so that means if somebody in South Carolina contacts the National Training Center saying, I really need some Project GLAD in my district, they'll say, oh, well, we have a regional training center that's, just across the border. That's going to be a much better decision for you. So they are funneling that need our way. And it's really exciting. It's a lot of work, but it's good work. And again, it's the right work. I hope I covered everything, but it is really fun. It's really fun for the kids and the teachers, which is what it's all about. So unless you have any questions, I appreciate the 6 to 8 minutes that I totally went over on. I'm sorry. But it's a lot of fun. Thank you.
Good job. Okay, we're going to go to board member observations.
Okay. Thursday was T-shirt day at our elementary schools, and I was lucky to go to Glen Marlowe. And if you ever need joy and hope for the future, spend the day with kindergartners. If you ever want to feel old, hand out T-shirts. That's a class of 2037. But it was just such a wonderful day, and the kids were so excited, and so were we. That's it.
Good job. Leah?
I was privileged to be able to go both days. It was just awesome. There's some children that just literally are contagious with their enthusiasm, and you can't help but just get excited with them. So I really enjoyed that, and thank you, Kimbrell, for putting all of that together. It's always a joy. I hope to get to do it every year. If you haven't been, you need to go. Got to see the chinchilla too. Yeah, Peanuts, I think is her name. It's awesome. I want to say, I've got a few things I'd like to comment on. I want to say that we have a wonderful SRO program in this county, and I want to give a shout out again for such a great job that everyone in this county does that is affiliated with our schools and also in our county as a whole. It's wonderful to see the children interact with the SRO officers all across the board. I do want to say that we started our Pathfinders program today. It was amazing. Maggie Gillum has got it it's just clicking right along. If you got a question, just don't worry. She's got it under control. And if you haven't gone to the Henderson County Education website to check out the Pathfinders, I encourage you to do that. We need sponsors, by the way. So that's a great, oh my gosh, I'm just so excited about that one. I'd like to I'd like to bring up at some point the cell phone policy and the dress code policy. That was kind of like very evident at my visit at West this go around. So I don't know how we need to do that, but we need to do something about that. It was very blatant and obvious that I would much rather see us do something on a local level, because we know there's a no cell phone movement going across the nation. I would like to see us do it on a local level versus having legislators get involved with that. I think we could handle it much better. Okay? And the dress code. Yeah, that was a shocker too.
I
Okay.
want to just say a little bit more about Pathfinders, and then we'll see if anybody else has anything. But as Ms. Dale said, the Pathfinder program just kicked off at East Henderson. Volunteers will spend the 12 school days meeting with every ninth grade student to begin building a relationship and assisting them to ensure school success. And this will be our first foray into this new adventure, and look forward to seeing the impact it has on the students as well as the community. So that's every single ninth grader.
Yes.
And it's really great. We went and toured, I forget, down south, that other school that's doing it.
Yes. Rutherfordton?
Yes, Rutherford.
County.
Yeah, Rutherford County. Great program. So it's really good that we've started that and are following in their footsteps.
Yes, and I can't tell you how rewarding it was to sit across from 5 students today and said, I'm going to be with you from now until 2028. And just the satisfaction of saying that, and then almost like this resolve that I'm going to see you for the next 4 years, it was just a strong connection and a very, very rewarding day across the board.
So that's great. And we are looking for sponsors.
Yes, we are looking for sponsors, yes. And so there's levels of sponsorship, and you'd have to go to Henderson County Education website to be able to see what those levels are. And I just want to give another shout out to Peggy for making this happen, for helping to make this happen.
Great program.
I'm extremely proud.
Yep, great program. Thank you. Anything else?
I actually took part in the T-shirt day. At Clear Creek, we gave out about 80 T-shirts to kindergarten students. What a thrill that was. And they will graduate in 2037, and I don't think I'll be around then. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to Upward Elementary School, to the custodial staff and the lunchroom staff. That school is spotless. So congratulations to the custodians, the principal, and the lunchroom staff for keeping that school so clean. If you ever get a chance to go out there and visit, please do so. Thank you.
I'll just echo what's already been shared in regards to our SROs. I'm just so thankful that we have the ability to have one at all schools here, and they do such a great job in our community and our schools. And I just want to say, we can't thank them enough for the work that they do every day. There was, this week it just proved yet again just how valuable they are. And, we have such precious things, our children and the children of this community. And I'm just so thankful, and I thank them so much for the hard work they do. And I'm so proud to be in this community where we have such great partnerships that we can all work together. And so I also agree with Sheila that we need to discuss the cell phone and dress code policies. That's all I got.
Thank you. Okay, public comments. First, I'm trying my best to finish this, but I can't. But it's Miss Betty Blackerby? Blackerby? B. So I wrote first. I had it. I thought, but I looked it over. I was like, no, it might be a D or a W. I wouldn't. Miss Blackerby. Sorry. Welcome. She wants to speak on support for public schools.
Thank you. My name is Betty Blackerby. We've got that now. And as you can see, I'm a member of the North Carolina Public Schools Strong. As our T-shirts say, we are very supportive of the things that you can see there. And I'd like to take a few minutes to expand a bit on what public school members actually support. We were pleased to share some of these concerns with visitors at our Apple Festival booth last weekend. In our advocacy for honest and accurate curricula beyond the basic reading, writing, and arithmetic, we oppose censorship, including outright book bans. We do, of course, expect our professional educators to carefully curate materials appropriate for age and maturity levels. We expect our teachers to offer accurate portrayals and opportunities for analyses of all aspects of history, those that bring forth celebration as well as those that bring forth criticism. We see the sciences and all their many complexities also as totally essential. We oppose to privatize education, including North Carolina legislative proposals, such as this week's new version of House Bill 10, to further expand private school vouchers while stripping public schools of another $248 million. Therefore, we expect the North Carolina legislature to comply with the 2022 North Carolina Supreme Court Leandro decision. That funding, once released, will go far in providing every North Carolina school with sound, basic education in a safe and welcoming environment. We abhor the decline of our state's ranking to almost the very bottom nationwide regarding school funding, while we simultaneously applaud the dedicated efforts, despite this shortfall, made every day by our public school employees at all levels. We endorse efforts to reinforce environments where all students thrive. We see open, honest collaboration with community members, especially parents and guardians, and other allies as key to public success. We believe that public schools are the true foundation of our nation's civic framework, and that they must be viewed and upheld as such. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Robert Cannon. Welcome, sir. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Members of the school board, what could you do with an additional $3 million in recurring funds? Think about those items that you put in the proposed budget request that you sent to the county commissioners, but for which funding was not provided. Now consider, this very week, the state legislature is poised to approve spending on an additional $463 million on education. However, under that proposed legislation, the money will not go to public schools. It's designated for private school vouchers. I believe funding for public schools should be a higher priority than expanding our voucher program. And no one is in a better position to advocate for public schools than you who serve on this board. I've already contacted my state legislatures. I urge you to do the same today. Tell them that additional funding would be well spent in public schools here. And while you're at it, tell them also that spending on vouchers will not necessarily improve the quality of education. I'm old enough to remember an earlier push for private school vouchers. Back then, they were promoted as a way to improve the quality of education for students. Nobody talks that way anymore. Josh Cowan, a researcher at Michigan State University, tells us why. He says, the last decade of research on vouchers strongly suggests that they actually lower achievement. Lower achievement. I do not have children or grandchildren living in North Carolina. Nevertheless, I do not mind paying taxes to support our public schools. Educating young people is important. In years to come, I will be relying upon those young people to lead this community. I want them well educated, but I also want my tax dollars well spent. Why should the tax dollars I pay be used to lower student achievement? Tell our legislators not to waste money on private school vouchers. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chris Walters, followed by Beth Pensiero. Morning, sir, or afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Sure.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have some comments here about the development of Berkeley Park. First of all, Berkeley Park is not a flat horizontal plane. It's not a field. It's part of our mountain landscape. I don't know what the exact elevations are, but whatever development takes place there, it's going to involve massive cutting of trees, mature oak trees, a movement of massive amounts of dirt and disruption of the present ecosystem. I first visited the park several months ago when I walked out there from the Ocklawaha Trail from town. I was surprised what a beautiful, lovely, serene place it was, and I said to myself, thank God the public owns it so we can protect it from developers. I vaguely understood that there might be some development there with some tennis courts and some other minor development, but I had no idea that people had plans to develop it into a massive sports center. I looked over board meetings for the last 13 to 14 months, and I didn't see anything mentioned there in the minutes about in those meetings. I never saw any advertisements for formal hearings so that we could be informed of exactly what was in the park and what the plans were. I looked for comments by board members on the minutes, and I didn't find any mention of development at Berkeley Park. I was at a recent county commission meeting where I saw the plans that looked like 4 soccer fields. I saw one of our school board members there, and I threw up my hands. It was after the meeting. I said, why do we need 4 soccer fields in the same place? He said, so they can have tournaments. I had never heard that before. I've been at county commission meetings, and I've seen young people there talking about the soccer fields. I thought they just lacked facilities at their schools. I had no idea that they needed these 4 soccer fields in one place for tournaments. Since the board owned the property, the board should have told us in a public meeting what the expectation was for the development of the park. The school system needs a bus garage. I learned that reading the minutes in the Joint Facilities Committee. We also need a new library in Fletcher. We have a crisis in school funding and in low teacher pay. It's disconcerting to see the board's emphasis on developing this massive sports complex. I spent a lot of time since I've been retired defending the public school system. It's very discouraging to me to see y'all being pushed through this without enough public comment and with not an acknowledgement of what's there at risk in Berkeley Park. We have about 13,000 students in our school system. I wonder how many are well served by organized sports and how many are left out. I think that school sports are important. We need to start rethinking athletics so that more students are involved, especially in intramural play. That's something I'll comment on later in another meeting. I think our PE teachers, our coaches are doing an incredible job taking care of the student athletes there and trying to involve everybody. They really are. The public needs to be involved. I have the notice here of the July 25th meeting where you all voted to convey Berkeley Park to the county commissioners. There's no allowance there for public comment. If the board had actively involved the public at an early stage, we may have been able to solve the tennis court problem and the softball field problem and still preserve some of the basic character of Berkeley Park with only minimal development. I just want to say this, if people have not been out there, the public, if you haven't been out to Berkeley Park, you should go out there, walk around the baseball field, which will be preserved at 1946 industrial, from the Industrial League. But the surrounding area is not going to be preserved. They're massive oak trees. This is your last time to see it. Maybe this will be the last fall that the acorns are going to fall from those trees. I know you're not doing anything intentionally wrong, but we do need to have more public comment, and that would be helpful, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Beth Pensiero. Am I saying that right? Yes, you are. Wow. And then Joe Elliott. Welcome, ma'am.
Hi. Good afternoon, Henderson County School Board. My name is Beth Pensiero, and I am a 12-year resident of Henderson County. Welcome back to a new school year full of hope and accomplishment for our local students, teachers, counselors, and administrative staff. During the last school term, I sat in this room, witness to a number of sessions in which students from all over this district were honored for great accomplishments in the areas of agriculture, arts and music, sports and business, etc. It has been uplifting to see what these young people can achieve through public education. Today, legislators in Raleigh were scheduled to convene for a special session. They have announced that they are doing so to pass legislation for private school vouchers. Vouchers that would most likely go to many families that are not in need of these funds, and to schools that do not necessarily share the academic standards of our public schools. Our hard-earned tax dollars would be siphoned off to support this theft. In light of this fact, we are told a few months ago that here in Henderson County, our schools face a shortfall of over $2 million for the school year, leaving you with the tough job of deciding what or who gets cut. Teachers, counselors, school nurses, frozen salaries that are already lagging behind the cost of living. Poor and working-class families in rural areas will be hurt hardest by this policy. They always are. But with the influx of new families to our area, we will need to provide education to all of our new students. Raleigh seems to be tone deaf to these needs. The fact that for generations we have provided solid public education in this country and in this state speaks volumes about our historic successes. I am asking our board members to send the message back to Raleigh that this is not a responsible use of tax funds when it comes to the well-being of our students and our communities. Thank you.
Ma'am, thank you. Joe Elliott, and finally followed by Joyce Marsteller. I did it again. Good afternoon, Mr. Elliott.
Good afternoon.
How are you, sir?
Nice to see all of you.
Yes, sir, you too.
A few weeks ago, the man running for president spoke at the annual Moms for Liberty conference. Moms for Liberty received substantial operational funding from the Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation authored the same presidential candidate's infamous Project 2025 manifesto. Project 2025 proposes the following changes to our national public education system. Phase out Title I and its $18 billion budget. Title I focuses heavily on students who are failing or at risk of failing. It also proposes conversion of the $13 billion federal IDEA program that primarily serves students with disabilities to the use by private schools. And it wants to eliminate the U.S. Department of Education. The recommendations of Project 2025 are consistent with those of the woman running in North Carolina to be our next state school superintendent. She appeared here in Henderson County last February at Blue Ridge Community College with one of the founders of Moms for Liberty. At the event and in subsequent public forums around the state, she has called for elimination of our state's Department of Education. In effect, she is asking us to elect her to the post as Chief Educational Officer over our public schools so she can dismantle it. Imagine the impact of our own public school funding here in the county if the Project 2025 proposal of the Heritage Foundation, created with the guidance of the Republican presidential candidate and endorsed by Moms for Liberty and the Republican candidate for state superintendent of schools. Federal funding accounts for about 10% of our county school budget. Given the recent struggle with our own county commissioners to recover $2.5 million of local funding that they wanted to eliminate, I'm pretty sure we should not expect their commissioners to find the funding if we lost the Fed's 10% contribution. How devastating would that loss of 10% of our funding be on our public schools, on our teachers and students? Notice to this point, I have not even mentioned our state legislators' decision last week to fund vouchers to the tune of $5 billion over the next decade. Where will that money come from? Higher taxes? I doubt it. Taking funds from public schools? Very likely. By the way, over 50% of the families currently receiving voucher funds have a family income over $120,000. I call that welfare for the wealthy. Henderson County voters need to carefully consider the makeup of our school board after the November election. We need to reassure ourselves that the new school board is composed of people that place our public schools ahead of any partisan politics. Our public schools may be in critical danger if we make the wrong choices. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. Ms. Marsteller? And friend?
Yes. I have to apologize for him because he hates guns and soldiers. He really does. He's fearful of them. So I had to hornswoggle him.
He made it through, and we were thankful they were here, so it all worked out.
Amen. Thank you so
Yes,
much,
ma'am.
sir. I appreciate so much what you guys do. You very rarely are able to please anyone, let alone everyone. And there's been a recurring thing in my little mind that I want to share again with you. I would love to see our schools get back to being able to teach children how to think, not what to think. I would love them to be able to realize for themselves truths that will set them free. I think they have inside them the desire to find out what is real and what isn't. And it took me, well, I'm 80 now, so it's taken me a while to understand some of these things. And our kids are they're such a wonderful resource. They are everything. If we fail them, we have failed everything that we're about. And our children look to y'all, I like that southern y'all. They really look to you because you're the head. You're the one that allows things to flow to everyone else, the superintendent, the principals, and the teachers and the children. This is such an important dialogue that you have. And you don't take it lightly. I can tell, I can see in you. Besides that, I pray for you. And I know that you are feeling and realizing how to work together, just a different spirit about being able to see the truth. And not your truth or my truth, but the truth. And the neat thing is, he's always right. I don't have to try. I just was so impressed with you allowing us to have a time of what would you call it? Thinking about him or whatever you want to think about, lunch, whatever. But I just know that he has a plan for this school system because we have done so much and we have seen so many wonderful kids come through here, wonderful teachers. I think you are going to direct sure, you're at the bottom maybe, well, not really the whole bottom, but not the greatest thing in education, but you have the potential to lead the whole state to the direction they should go. Where are they weak? I want you to be strong. Where they are strong, I want you to go with them and realize it. And I can't tell you how to vote. I can't tell you what to say or do, but I do know that you are important and you do your best, and I thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, take a look at your consent agenda. Let me know if there are any questions, and then I'll just wait for a motion.
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. We have some old business, some policies for adoption. We read these last time. This is the second reading. Mr. Garrett?
We'll do my best Mr. Taylor impression this evening as he's at a conference with Mr. Rhodes. You have before you two policies that you did accept on first reading last meeting. This first policy is the one involving foreign exchange students. If you will remember, you had that as a special local policy, moved it to a procedure because it did not align with the NCSBA policies that lead the schools that you subscribe to. And evidently they were inspired by your action because now they have placed it in their policy manual. So it is up for you this evening for adoption. I will be glad to offer answers if you have any questions.
Any questions? We'll go to the second one.
Yes, sir. We can handle this however you want to. Okay. This next policy is the one where it would really govern the use of naloxone. We have emergency management folks and our nurses do have that because they are with the health department. This would allow us to have trained individuals outside of those folks should there ever be an emergency on campus at any point where naloxone would be useful in that case. Again, this policy has not changed. Neither policy received any comment or request or questions from the time of your August meeting until now. So again, I'll be glad to answer any questions if you do have them.
Any questions?
Just a simple question, and I haven't looked, I should have already looked, but are these policies on the website for people to see, or, yes?
They are.
Anything else? I'll take a motion for these policies.
I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve policy 4140 and policy 5023/6128/7268 as presented. Second reading.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And we have some new business. Mr. Bernie Sosha. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you guys?
Great.
September, and we have a budget to present. This is a first. I'm very excited. That's how we get excited around here.
Take a lot.
That's good.
All right, you've got a couple of the links in there. You have the standard document that we usually show the comparison of the last year's budget to this year's budget, as well as the breakdown of the funding. But I'm going to start with a little bit of the background, a little bit deeper dive into what those slides really mean. So what we're looking at now is the initial budget for this year. We talked in the spring about primarily looking at the local budget for the county funding. Now we've got all the pieces. We've got our state money, even though they're talking about going back and looking at some more pieces, but it doesn't look like any of those pieces will be things that we will get. So we pretty much know what that big purple slice is going to look like. So we've got our different funding sources that we get in the different buckets, and they have to do with what they say they're for. So 96 million of our $170 million budget comes to us from the state. That is a large percentage going to be in the, about half of that is for the teacher population that we have. Then the next biggest chunk we have is the local current expense, and that is a combination of the state appropriation, the $35 million that we got from them, as well as fines and forfeitures and ABC revenues that we get to collect locally, and any fund balance that we are appropriating. So that's why it's the $37 million and not just the amount that the county has given us. The little green slice up in there is the local restricted fund, Fund 8. That is where we get to put the specific grants that we may get that are directed to the use, so that we don't have to share that piece of revenue with the charter schools. That's why the fund was created. It is for directed dollars that we have that do not have to get shared outward. And then the last 19 million up there is the federal, and as this is the last year that it's going to be a large piece in there, because this is the last year of our ESSER money. We're down to the last $7 million, but so that'll go back down to, you know, roughly 12 million for next year. So, but we have that piece in there. So that's where all the different funding comes from. And again, I know this is small looking at it here. It's on the other document, you can see it better, but this is just a comparison in a breakdown of what the percentages look like. You know, you saw the pie chart, which talks about the top slide. The middle piece is breaking it down by the object, so we can look at, well, what type of expenditures are we looking at? And I'll get into a little bit more detail later on in the slides, but you know, that big piece of the pie up there, it's salaries and benefits. That is the largest portion of our budget. Over 70% of our budget goes into salaries and benefits. The bottom piece is, where are we spending our money? Well, that large chunk, the blue, it's in the instructional services piece, as you would expect it would be. But we are a very large, we have a system, we have a lot of buildings, we have a lot of space. So there are other things that we have to do, which is where we get into some of those system-wide things. We have to provide maintenance and we have to provide transportation. They fall into the other category. So all necessary to support that one big chunk. Don't even try to read those up there. They're on the other document where you can see them bigger. Just sort of walking you through what the document is. But this gives you the breakdown to show, yeah, we've got $170 million, but it is very categorical as to how we get it, which is why we spend our time in the spring talking about the local, and we'll talk more about that in just a minute. But this is the categories that we get the money in and where we have to spend the money. So it shows you the different programs right up there at the top. You know, classroom teachers, that is the biggest piece. The 7.7 million that is in there for teachers in the local column does not mean that we're spending that much just in the teachers' salaries on local. That is also where the local supplement goes. So about a third of that, about 2.5 million of that is what we're spending on teachers' salaries out of local, and then another third goes into the local supplement, and then unfortunately another third that goes into the retirement and hospitalization. So that's how that gets broken down. But, and as you have questions, please interrupt me, because once I start breathing, I don't stop talking till I'm done. So I get the one question as we were looking at where our budget is, and I mentioned that there was fund balance in that number. So there's $1.5 million in fund balance. Now we went and we made a request to the commissioners back in the spring, and we said, okay, this is how much we needed. And then they funded the uncontrollable portion of what we asked for. Then we came back in our conversations here and we talked about taking the social workers, the middle school teaching positions, and the coaching supplement and putting that into fund balance to cover that for this year. So that's what those top three are. Then the next four lines are what happened since March and April when we were planning all of this, and then when we got our state budgets and we have our new estimates for the current year. So we got hit with our insurance premiums. They went up $200,000. A lot of that was workers' comp, a little bit of that was property. But as our salaries go up, our workers' comp goes up. We happened to get that in time to do this, but it's going to cost us an extra $200,000 that we weren't expecting. Same thing on the maintenance side. Our utilities have gone up a little bit more, as well as the estimates from Chad for the parts and the services that we have to keep the maintenance department running. There is no other funding for maintenance. That facilities fall into as a local responsibility. So all of that has to come out of local. The bus overtime line, we've been spending $200,000 a year on bus overtime out of ESSER. ESSER's not going to be around for us to continue that. So this is our version of a step-down plan to try to start to minimize what we are paying in bus overtime and hopefully try to incentivize in the same time getting more drivers, getting more people that we can have in the driving pool and have less overtime. But we know that the alternative to coming up with this line in the budget, which we were hoping we might come up with something different, but is parking buses. It's either parking buses or we have to pay overtime to get the buses on the road. So that's our step-down plan for that. And then the state came back and decided to cut us actually more than $210,000 in a few of our allotments, but this is the salary component to what we had to keep in our budget because we were already starting the school year, already had people in place. There was not enough funding in a couple of those programs, so we have moved the money for $210,000 that spilled over into local. It's a couple months of administrator. With our ADM decreases, we're not providing less services in some of those places, but we have those. We have a couple positions that were also cut out of the state health allotment, which is the non-instructional support line, and then we had actually an $85,000 cut to our at-risk pool. We're only putting $25,000 in there because that's the salary component that we needed to keep, and the other part we're just doing without allotting to the schools. So all those pieces wrap up into that $1.5 million. And then we'll talk a little bit more about the fund balance, but as you know, we have a healthy fund balance. So this is our way. And as our part of our plan coming off of ESSER, we anticipated it was going to take a couple years of stepping down a little bit less to get it to where we are self-sufficient in our budget like we used to be. So that's what we're talking about. So if we look historically at our fund balance trend, with that $1.5 million, it's going to get us down to about $4.9 million of fund balance, back to what we were back at the end of fiscal year '21, right at the beginning of the first year of COVID, or even way back to where we were with the ARA money when we were stepping down from that. You know, as we talk about where should fund balance be, what is the fund balance, those middle years that we had in there where we were operating basically on our own without those big federal programs, our fund balance, the only increase through that whole 7-year period was a $300,000 increase up through fiscal year '20, as we were trying to get up to $3.5 million. That is, at that point, the board had said 3.5 was a good number to strive for, and then we just shot that one out when ESSER came. We were able to just maximize those federal dollars because we knew we were going to be standing here at this point, looking at how can we continue all these services as we're trying to recover from COVID. Right in the middle of it, we balanced, our fund balance only changed $7,000 from '22 to '23. That year was very balanced, and now we're on that step down to use up some of that fund balance, but yet keep a healthy amount. Because as Mr. Garrett talked about before, I've talked about before, our federal money doesn't come to us until October. So we've got to kind of float the federal programs along until we can get to that point. So that is where, if we talk about the percentages, if we were at 10% down there when we were around that 3 million back in those days, back in from 17, 18, 19, 20, that was a 10% amount of our budget. Now our budget's gone up. 10% is looking more like closer to $4 million of our just local funding. If we want to figure out how that is over the overall budget, that'd be like about 2.5% of our overall budget, but we're not trying to keep everything in line. It's just where we are on the local side. That's, we're spending $3 million a month out of local. So to give a perspective of what that looks like on there. So that's the breakdown of where our fund balance comes into that piece for us for this year. A few points. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, please.
Do you anticipate going forward that we're going to be looking at 1.5 million of fund balance being appropriated every year?
No. The hope is that when we know those top 3 things have a potential to be a recurring expense, unless we find some other way to either fund them or we change priorities.
Can you go back then?
I did on my paper.
One more. So you're still looking at an additional, call it 800,000, 850,000 in
Yes.
appropriation?
There are a couple of those pieces that, in insurance, we can't do without. The state decreases, hopefully that's a weird one because part of what saved our fund balance last year, we were looking at $2 million. We ended up actually spending $1 million out of fund balance. One of the reasons we had that was because they gave us over $250,000 in June in the state, which we were able to throw a lot of our local expenses in, so that helped us. And then they came right back behind that and reduced us this year almost the same amount of money.
So after fiscal year '25, you're looking at being around that 10% number, that $4 million number that you guys are comfortable with in fund balance. But after that, it would seem, if we keep on the same trajectory, that we would be under that amount and have, 5 years left at that current spending rate to spend that down to 0.
Yes.
So at some point, we got to find a balanced budget.
So yes, this is our year
Okay.
to be able to figure out, okay, we know these items are out there. We have the money to get us through. What,
Are we going to pay for it going forward?
how are we going to do it forward? Right. Is it a high priority that moves its way into the budget in lieu of something else? Is it going to be a request of the commissioners? Those are our choices. The idea is not to just be asking for more money. The idea is to figure out how we can make it work within the budget that we have. But, we worked hard to get the fund balance to where it is so that we could have the time to make those decisions. And here we are. We're looking at making those decisions this year. How are we going to make it work. What can we do about some of these lines? What can we do about the bus overtime? Does the social worker line, do we partner with somebody? How can we make that work for next year? So, yeah, we're gonna hit the ground running this year. It's part of the reason we're excited to have one in September instead of December, when we're already halfway through the year, and in 2 months, we're trying to plan for the following year. So we'll look at all of these pieces right now.
The other thing to consider too is this is being very conservative so that we're not caught in the spring going over what we thought we might run. So this is a worst case scenario on our budget so that we know that this approval point, you would not have to come back and reallocate. So that number will flux or should go down from that number, barring nothing crazy happening.
Yeah, as we look at the way the budget was built, it's a zero-based budget. We built it up from zero, but we are mostly payroll. This assumes that every position is going to be filled all year, and everyone's going to spend as they're budgeted out right now. We know, especially coming out of COVID, that we don't have every position filled all year long. That's part of the other reason why we didn't have $2 million of fund balance spent last year. We had $300,000 in lapsed teaching position salaries just throughout the course of the year. When you have that many positions, a few positions go a few months at a time, and it adds up. And there's $300,000 in salaries that were just in chunks all throughout the course of the year. So, like Mr. Garrett says, if everything came out and spent every dollar, it would be this. We do not typically see that. We're seeing it a little bit more. We have better staff now than we've been in the last 5 years. But we know there's going to be some things, and we will work all year long to try to save wherever we can. We'll maximize the federal dollars to the last penny that we got, and we will use every state dollar in the most efficient manner that we can.
I guess my point is that just this board's got to be aware of that when you're building a zero-based budget, which I believe in a zero-based budget, and building that thing up, your revenues have to meet your expenditures, right? And when you're constantly going over, it defeats the purpose of a zero-based budget. So we've got to make sure that this gets under control somehow.
Well, there's certain things that you can't control. You can't control the insurance. You can't control maintenance. Can you talk to me about the overtime, the bus overtime? What does that look like?
So we have, as you probably have heard, we have a bus driver shortage. We have a lot of postings. We are trying to fill every position that we have, but we just are having a hard time filling those positions, just like everybody across the whole state. So we have bus subs that work, but those subs are working either in an overtime state because they are a non-certified position that gets paid overtime, or we are paying certified staff $20 an hour to drive. So there is a component higher than what our funding stream is from the state for transportation that fits into this overtime. So if we've got a driver that's going to make, $17 an hour driving on a normal route, and then if that person then drives overtime, they're getting time and a half, and this covers the time and a half, the half component to what they're getting. And we have had so many people that have been in that overtime situation that's why we had to use the $200,000 of ESSER dollars to keep the buses on the road, keep them moving. So we're trying to minimize that. We're trying different scenarios, different options at the school level to try to incentivize more drivers driving within that 40-hour week so that we can have less overtime and do it within our custodial or inside of our transportation budgets of where our dollars are coming from the state. But this is what we've been over. And to your first point, and to Mr. Craven's point, these pieces are uncontrollable. We can't control the insurance component, but what we have to do is control getting them in the money that we have. So that's the piece that we have to handle.
It'll be our job this year to find that in other places so that we don't continue into fund balance each year.
So just a question, we know that other districts are having bus driving issues. Do we know of any that have actually been able to come up with a solution? Just a question.
In short, no. We talk all the time about what are you doing for bus drivers? How are you doing that? It comes down to they're either parking their buses or they're finding ways to go above and beyond their funding streams and taking local money to keep buses on the road. Now, one thing that we worked on this summer, Mr. Taylor did a really good job working on, is looking at our custodian positions and looking at rethinking what their time looks like, because a lot of custodians only wanted to drive one route or the other because they didn't want to work a few hours, work at school as a custodian, go home, and then come back and drive a bus. So what we have done this year is offered a 4-day week to those staff members so that they get their hours in 4 days. So you're covering those buses and getting extra routes, getting 2 or 3 extra routes a week out of them without going into overtime. And then taking your overall custodian or custodial staff and shifting those. So one might be out on a Monday and the other might be out on a Friday, but you're able to cover it. So that's what we're trying to do proactively. Again, we've had a few takers on that, but as we're hiring, those are some things for flexibility that we're offering so that you get the same amount of service, you're just doing it in a little bit different delivery model.
So basically, they would be getting a 40-hour week in 4 days.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
We would pick up, so right now the custodians drive, if they're driving every day and doing both morning and afternoon, they're doing 5 at straight time and then there's 5 at overtime. So we got 5 days that they're driving. In this scenario, they drive the 4 days. That would give us 8 bus routes paid at straight time. So we'd pick up 3 routes for every position that would do this. So it was 3 less in the overtime. So just as an attempt, and hopefully they find the 410s to be an appealing work schedule. It's worked well in maintenance, that it might provide something then. And then just a struggling, shifting around at the school level to make sure everybody's where they need to be so that we have coverage. That's the other piece. But we think it's a good idea.
And in a couple of months, we'll be able to see basically what that bus overtime is tracking, because we broke it down by month last year and the last couple of years. So we'll know pretty quickly after a couple of payroll cycles what that's doing.
That line item disappear, that's what we're hoping. That line item there will disappear, correct?
Well, we either have to make it disappear or we have to find it somewhere else in the budget.
Yes,
it will-
yes,
it-
yes.
Or we have to park buses.
We want to
Okay.
make it disappear from this list.
Okay.
Whether it goes, either
Yes.
goes somewhere else or it shrinks, yes, down. That's the goal.
So out of the $170 million budget this next year, we need to find 1.5, 373 in savings out of moving into next fiscal year.
That we
Fiscal
can
20.
use for those positions.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
That's the key.
Correct. So we have to find it in recurring money. And one of the things, as Mr. Socia shared, having it now rather than in December like we've had the last couple of years will give us the opportunity to really work on that as the year goes. It's really hard to get a budget in December, present a budget, your local budget request in January, because you're just really, and then the year before that, we were guessing on what the state was going to give us as well. So I feel much more confident in working through this budget for the fiscal 25 than I have in a long time, because we actually have real numbers to work with. It's also interesting, I had Bernie break it down, or Mr. Socia break it down, that's about 1% of your overall budget, or less than 1%. So, if we shoot at 99%, that's still less, and we hit that, that's still less than 1% of your overall budget, which isn't bad when you think
but
about how
got-
huge.
You can't put it across the whole pie. It's really the local current expense. So it's a much bigger percentage if you look at it that way, though.
But as far as finding that throughout, we have the opportunity to
Hopefully we
find it
can.
throughout the federal and the state.
Well, I think what Mr. Craven brings up is certainly a very important issue. We can't keep spending fund balance, but I'm also encouraged to hear that the administration feels like they know this and are looking for answers, so that's good.
Yeah, we knew this was coming, you know, you get that much federal dollars get just inundate every school system, and you're spending it, for the past couple of years. And every time that we spent those dollars, we said, hey, at some point, they're not gonna be there. Well, we're at some point.
Yep.
Yes, sir, this is the year.
This is just a few of the key points that came out of, building our budget this year. Our average teacher salary here is 52,600 with a wide range. We've got, the new teachers come in, it's only 41,000 up to those master national boards that have been here for many years are up to 70. Clearly, we're averaging more on the lower end of that scale than everything. With local supplement, our teachers are coming in at 57,000. But what really gets us from the ability to spend the dollars is the cost for that is over $83,000 per position, because we have to spend all those extra dollars on the retirement, hospitalization, the FICA costs. It's a lot more. That's why we can have, it seems like a lot of dollars going out the door for not as much going out to the teachers. We talk about why, we've had local positions. We talk about the local positions. So we've got about 7% of our teaching staff in local dollars. Statewide, the average is 6.9%. So we are hitting kind of that, we're in the same ballpark where the rest of the state is. One of the things we're at a disadvantage is we don't have small county or low wealth funds. Some school systems get to go outside of their funding source for the teacher positions and use those dollars. The other counties like us, we have to use local dollars to pay for them. The state funds us a lot of positions, but they fund them as if they come in exactly the right size classroom. So this is basically the overflow that we have, especially at the elementary grades, because they don't come in the exact number that they allot the position. So that's, just wanted to point that out. That's sort of where we're coming from the teaching pool, because that is our largest bucket of money that we're spending. What we saw this year, we talked about, it was a 3% increase. What that means, $25.7 million of local dollars are going, that local current expense is going into the salary and benefit pool. What that looks like compared to last year, it's $1.9 million more. A big chunk of that is those items I just identified on the fund balance. That is in the fund balance. What was left was $777,788 of salary and benefit increase to our staff. We requested $779, so we came out good, $1,200. We were pretty happy when we built the budget that our salary increase was just about where we asked for, so it didn't have to affect any other lines. A lot of times we don't know and we miss that mark and it has to come from somewhere else. This year we got it spot on, so we were able to build the budget without having to deal with that. We already talked about the fund balance piece, and I always like to bring up the other $2.6 million that we asked for that is out the door for the charter schools, just as a matter of fact, that $2.6 million of our budget isn't staying here with us, that we do have to spend that out for the charter schools. Sir?
Wait, one more. I have a question. So are you saying the average teacher salary with local supplement is $57,000, and was that before or after a 3% salary increase?
That's after. That is the current year.
Okay, so that's including the
That's including.
Okay, thank you.
But I'll back that up a little bit. That is, again, that's the average. If we look at the ones that are paid out of local funds, our average is $41,050, because they're almost all the new teachers that are at the bottom of the scale. So that is the cost. That's why the cost to us is $2.5 million for the number of positions that we have, because we're paying for the new teachers in there. This one was just, I think, a good visualization to show, like, where are we spending the money that we have control over? Well, it's about 69% of it is that salary and benefit piece that we just talked about, that $25 million. The maintenance, the insurance, the facility cost is 18%. That doesn't include the salaries for maintenance, that is just the operational cost of running maintenance. The charter schools, that's 7% right there. And then we provide school supplies, about $1.1 million that we allot to the schools that we give out for school supplies. That is us shifting and, if you will, supplanting some of the state funding, because the state provides a supply allotment. We don't use those for supplies, we use that for salaries because we get more bang for our buck. If the state is paying for someone, they pay for the workers' comp insurance, they pay if the person leaves. So we use local dollars instead, so we provide all of that out of local. That is 3%, and that leaves us with 3.2% for everything else. That's all our contracted services, that's all of our other supplies that the district might be using at the department level or things of that nature. So that 3% is the catch-all that we have all the control over for everything else that we have to pick up. So I just thought this was a good representation of what the county money goes to.
I want to talk about something that deals with this. Can you go back to one more slide? What is our current supplement for our certified staff right now?
9%.
9%. And what does that equal out to? What do you know the dollar amount?
Oh, it's a little over $6 million.
And do we pay benefits on top of that $6 million?
Yes,
And what is our current supplement for non-cert staff?
6.75.
And what's that number work out to?
Well, I'm sorry, so the number I gave you before, that is, the 6 million is the supplement.
For everybody.
For everybody, sorry.
So is there a way for us to, you're paying salary and, or you're paying hospitalization and benefits on the supplement, right?
Just no hospitalization, but we're paying FICA and retirement.
All right,
For
so
anybody full-time who's getting the supplement.
So FICA and retirement, what percentage of FICA and retirement is that of that $6 million? So is it 20%? I know we spend
30%.
30% of that goes into FICA and retirement. Is there a way that we can look at a different system for supplementing our teachers that doesn't have to be paid into FICA? Well, FICA you have to pay for, but into the retirement program, such as a bonus program.
From what DPI has told us in the past on supplements is that the retirement system will see those and want to collect on bonuses. That was what they told us when we did the stipends out of the COVID funds, was that we were to include retirement on those bonuses. I like the direction. And I think a lot of counties would love to figure
Yeah, I mean, it's
that out as well.
1.8 million of the $6 million that you're actually giving out is going, up the street, right? In addition to they are also paying 6% of that out of their check,
They
correct?
contribute into retirement.
So 36% is going out the door where it came from, out of the local dollars, out of our local property tax that we're paying for, is going back to Raleigh, right?
Yes.
So there's no other program or whatever to incentivize our teachers that wouldn't have that hit.
We're not aware of any. I mean, we do talk about things, other school systems. We try to come up with things, and the conversation usually circles right back around to retirement. How can we not include retirement at 24%? Because that's the dagger in anything that we try to do, is that, it's another quarter of the cost just to hit that. FICA is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to pay FICA, right?
But it's the retirement piece. And yeah, all the other districts are in the same boat. But doesn't mean we're not going to keep trying to figure something out that would be an alternative to that.
Do those charter schools have to pay that into that retirement? It's a loaded question. I already know the answer.
If they participate.
If they participate.
Yeah.
They're not forced to participate in the retirement program. They can shop for their services.
Yeah, I knew that.
We are not allowed to shop. I'm just reading that for the public, sir. We're not allowed
Thank you, sir. I appreciate
our
that.
services.
All right, I'm off my soapbox.
No, it's a good box.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of money.
Mhm. Yeah, and I've seen that in my time here. I mean, it's doubled since I've been here. So the percentage, the cost is probably tripled.
Well, just the percentage of the retirement rate in the last 10 years
Yeah.
has more than doubled. And it's really more than double of the county retirement rates in their system.
Yeah.
Because they pay around 11, 12%, I think around 12%.
Yeah, I think they're about half.
So other governmental agencies pay half the percentage of retirement that we do as an
They have-
educational.
They have different retirement systems depending on which agency they're part of.
So we are TSRS, teasers, the Teacher State Retirement System. It has a 24% retirement rate. The other governmental systems have a much lower rate.
But participate at the same level, essentially, as far as their pension goes.
Relatively close.
Relatively, and their medical goes. So, yeah. Anyhow. It's just frustrating.
Agreed.
I think the other agencies are surprised when they hear what our rate is too.
Yeah.
They're very surprised.
Yeah. And which is why it's important for us to continue to remind everybody that that is what we have to pay when we start, especially when we go downtown and talking about our increases. You know, they don't recognize that because they're not dealing with the same cost that we are for that.
Yeah, 'cause essentially, if that teacher's making $50,000, we're sending 15,000+ back to the state out of our coffers to pay for the retirement.
Yeah, that's why it's 83,000
That's why it costs $83,000 for a teacher versus 50-something thousand.
versus how much teachers are actually taking home. It's good to finish on a good note.
Hey. You're welcome.
So I guess you're finished?
Jesse, do you have any other? That is all I have on this one, unless you have other questions.
I did have one small one.
Yeah.
I don't know where on my sheet, it's page 2. I don't know where it is on yours. It looks to me as if the federal grants fund dropped 8 million,
It did.
but the state public school fund increased 5. So is that a shift in government allocation?
No, that is the exhaustion of ESSER funds.
But why did public school funds go up 5 then?
That's just that's the 3% they build in when they say a 3%, so they have a formula that says this is how much your state allotments are gonna go up with that 3% salary. The benefit rate increases to the hospitalization because they're allotting us, that 96 million. And there's formulas in there to how they come up with that. The teacher allotment is a
That's just given
position.
every year.
And that, yes, that.
Okay, fine.
Yep.
I'm with you. Thank you.
So that teacher unit has a value that they assign to it, and we get X amount of teacher units in our allotment. The things that we go above and beyond is where we use the local, which is why we use the 0 and 1 year teachers out of local dollars, because it's less money going back. But they do account that in our accounting every year to show the increase.
Clear as mud.
We call that one, it's a guaranteed allotment. They give us a position and then they'll pay whatever it costs. So that's why we put more expensive people in there, because they're gonna pay a $41,000 or a $51,000 teacher. So we give them the $51,000 teacher.
Okay, any questions? Well, now that you're on a roll.
One more piece, if you
right.
guys
We
are up
are
for it.
requesting
If you're-
action if you're
If you're up for a
comfortable making
motion.
that, so that we can move forward with the budget.
Entertain a motion?
I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the initial budget resolution for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much. We will get that posted tomorrow. Okay.
One more.
Now we'll move on, a little more fun.
Really cool.
This is a good order of events to do things in. So this is a combo because this is a sole source along with an excess of $90,000 purchase, but we're just putting it all together. So that for the CTE program, as well as other programs in the system, that we can go out and purchase some interactive virtual anatomy tables through Anatomage company. And if you can say that 3 times, then you win one. But
Do it, then we won't have to pay for
No,
this.
we already tried it. It's another one of those internet hoaxes.
Right.
I can't say it 3 times, so I got one, so you guys, that's it. I had to write notes so I make sure I pronounced it
There you
correctly,
go.
because it just doesn't flow. Shannon would have known if she'd laughed. Because I say it wrong every week in Esser. So the total for these is $400,000. That's why we're here today. These are really cool. They're like I said, they're the virtual anatomy table. It will be able to be used, it's largely going to be in the health programs, but we're going to be able to use it in biology, in animal science. They're talking about coming up with the other programs that we were looking at, partnering up with Blue Ridge from the medical side, from the EMT side. They'll be used all over the place. This is to provide one table in each of our high school facilities, and we're doing this out of the last remnants of Esser. So we will spend down our Esser funds through to purchase these. We're going to upgrade a little bit. The one will be the larger of the table options at Innovative High School, because they have some funding through the IPG, the Innovative Partnership Grant funds, that are expiring any day now. So they'll use some funds out of that as well, so that we don't lose those funds either. So that will get them the convertible table, which is the full 7-foot table that you can stand up. So it's like,
So I got one, when these things are in, I want to go see these things because they sound really cool. So they're essentially tables where we can dissect frogs or look at human body anatomically and
yeah, and I don't know how many of you clicked on the website that shows the table to see that, yeah, you can look at every system that's going on. And I think the end of the one piece, it shows how they can, from like a clinical standpoint, how an IV gets started. You can see exactly what is happening with the needle. I mean, watch the heartbeat. It really gives them a great introduction into this that they never would be able to get, to decide this is what I want to do, or some may decide, nope, this is not for me, but better see that on a virtual table than when they show up for clinicals and there's a real person.
And we have a short clip if you would like to see it, or you can just.
I'll play it.
So,
How can cadavers exhibit real-time physiology?
this certainly beats the frog that I worked on.
And the
How can cadavers exhibit real-time physiology? Imagine studying a cadaver and witnessing its heartbeat, or its lungs expand and contract, as if it were alive. It sounds odd, but with Anatomage's new technology, students can now explore real-time physiology, experiencing these vital processes as though they are unfolding right before their eyes. Anatomage bodies, created from real cadaveric slices, have long been reliable resources for accurately studying human anatomy. With the integration of medically accurate physiological motions, Anatomage bodies are elevated to the next level, offering real-time, precise physiological simulations. Starting with the brain, students can develop spatial awareness of various functional areas in 3D. They can also simulate Brodmann areas on the brain, allowing them to easily identify all 52 distinct regions. Students can select various types of strokes and comprehend how the blockage of specific vessels can impact different brain functions. With Anatomage, students can visualize the journey of glucose particles throughout the body after a meal in real time. They can observe each stage of glucose regulation, from its absorption and impact on insulin production to its conversion into glycogen. and even going beyond macroanatomy. Students have the opportunity to engage with every step of urine production at both the macro and histological levels. They can specifically trace how different substances are filtered, reabsorbed, and excreted through the nephrons. Beyond visualizing air particles moving through the bronchi, students can also control the cadaver's breathing and respiration rate. Typically difficult to train, bronchoscopy becomes more intuitive with anatomage, allowing students to simulate the procedure on a real cadaver. Next, students can explore cardiac physiology with a digital Wiggers diagram and investigate pathophysiology using our interactive 12-lead ECG. By rotating the 3D model, students can closely examine the cardiac structures impacted by different heart conditions. Get beneath the skin to explore the muscles responsible for our daily facial expressions. As the muscles are modeled from real tissues, students can visualize realistic muscle movements. Instructors can leverage anatomage bodies as visual tools during lectures. For example, using Anatomage's developmental anatomy features, teachers can demonstrate how anatomy evolves through various embryonic stages. Lab activities become more practical with clinical procedures, allowing students to step into the roles of doctors and nurses. For example, they can practice locating insertion sites for tumors or veins, gaining valuable hands-on experience in operative techniques, including the advanced procedures such as angiogram. Students can practice placing catheters inside arteries and visualize blood vessels in great 3D detail. They can trace the catheter's path inside the vessel and towards the heart. With this tool, students can also inspect the catheter's activity during fluoroscopy. Anatomage is committed to making our anatomage bodies as realistic as living human bodies. With our latest upgrade, we are one step closer to achieving this vision. Visit anatomage.com for more information.
Yep, that is not for me.
If it were an engine underneath the Ford
Yeah,
truck,
maybe.
then maybe you'd
motor
you
oil
can
in
get
it?
3D for that for you. It's harder to
cool, though.
bear though.
Well, what's really good is we have checked with the company. We had a webinar with them recently. This is a one-time cost. You get the software upgrades as they add different procedures, as they add different bodies or different types of procedures, you will get those automatically. It comes with support and it comes with training. Dr. Marlowe is already working with Mr. Moore about what that training would look like. Our initial placement would be in the health occupations program, but due to size constraints of some of the rooms, we're getting a half-size table, or proposing a half-size table at our traditional high schools, which also allows them to get some multiple uses out of it. If you're talking about biology, if you're talking about your animal science classes as well. The one table at the Career Academy would be tiltable, 7 feet tall, so it tilts up. It is life-size. So we know that any of our advanced kids, maybe our CNA classes at those high schools, could then go over and interact with that table as appropriate. The other thing is where these things will stream to the touch screens that we already have. So you're able to display it as well. So it's pretty versatile, a lot more versatile than we thought when we first started looking at this. So it's an opportunity to take some funding that you've got and do something that I don't know how you would do this otherwise, and really put us on par with universities, not just other school districts, but really universities.
I think this is a wonderful, wonderful technology. When I watched the video the first time, I went, well, this will stop a student or move them right ahead. So I understand there's a 4-year extended warranty on this, and the ESSER funds are being used for that. Do we have any idea what that licensing will be at the end of that warranty, that 4-year? Is there a cost afterwards?
No, this is a lifetime. It's a
One-time
lifetime software
buy.
cost, yes.
Okay, well, I did the math on it. I think, I just think it's amazing. I'm really, really happy you found this. It's a definite plus for this county.
It's a little bit stark when you look at it per unit, but then when you talk about over time, return on investment, and the number of students and programs who can benefit, it really is not prohibitive when you think of it in that term.
I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the purchase with annotation as presented.
Second.
Actually, not a
We lost.
That's what I always say, so, you know,
Mr. Sosha, pro tip, don't correct a board member during a motion.
Wait a minute, wait, what?
It's anatomage.
Anatomage. How'd I do?
pretty good.
I guess we lost that.
No, out of all that, we do have a motion, and I did hear a
We're
second.
gonna keep yours over at.
Well, I heard a
You
second
can see it
somewhere.
anytime you want.
So is there any further discussion?
I just want to see it when they.
Same.
We will let you know when the professional development is. I'm going to guess you want to see the 7-foot table.
Yes.
It's really
So
impressive.
when do they,
Go ahead.
when do they get here? Right.
Oh,
We approve it, you order them,
like
they're
Prime,
here
2
for
days?
like
What are we
next year.
looking at?
Yeah, Prime.
No, the turnaround's 4 to 6 weeks, I
That's
think, is
exactly
what they
That's
said.
not bad at
So
all.
by Christmas.
Cool.
Oh, definitely. Definitely by Christmas. I'm hoping into the 9 weeks.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Motion passes.
And this will time out really well because of second semester CNA classes, courses that are going on, so.
And finally, under new business, the school board is going to have a board vacancy sometime before December. Ms. Lopez, if you could start us off with how we might proceed forward, that'd be great.
Certainly. The law and your board policy speak to this, but don't provide a lot of detail or requirements. But basically, your board policy says that vacancies caused by resignation or otherwise will be filled immediately by a person appointed by the remaining members of the board to serve the remainder of the unexpired term. And this is in effect for you now. In the future, you would not follow this law because of the partisan nature of board elections, but this would be in effect now.
Okay, I was told that, to be more specific, I will be vacating the board in December, so to serve on another board. So that's where the vacancy comes from. Is that good?
That's why I
just
didn't
thought
say
some of the
death.
public may not know why this was on there, or if they were expecting something to happen today, which is not, so.
Okay, so we're good. So, thank you.
So essentially, when he declares the date that he's leaving, the board can then take action to replace him?
Correct.
So I'm going to give an example. So if in the November meeting, whatever date that is, second Monday in November, at the end of the meeting, if I say, I don't even know what I do say, but do I say I will be resigning from the board effective November 30th, period? And then they can do what the board can do, what the board wants. The board can, what's the word? Appoint someone at that time, effective December 1st, is that correct?
Correct.
Or they could decide to take, what's the word?
Application.
Applications. They could decide to do that. They could interview in public. They could do what they want to do.
That's correct. Neither the law nor the policy really provide a process for this, so that you have some leeway with regard to the process that you choose to use.
And he could choose to set that date anytime that he wanted to. If he, even today, tomorrow, next week, he'd say, my last day is November 30th. He could say that to the board, and I'm sure, write a letter to the superintendent, I'm assuming, or the vice chair, announcing those intentions?
Sure, yes.
Oh, I'll still be involved, I'm sure.
And then this is the last sitting board for now, and probably into perpetuity for this board to actually decide who gets to take that position. Since the new board that would be coming on in December, or voted on in November, but coming on board in December, is partisan. So at that particular point, if somebody ever resigned or quit or whatever, the party that, how does that work? The party that they registered under would get to decide?
That is my understanding, but I think it would depend upon how that particular board member had been elected. So you would still have board members who are elected under the old law, and the new law would apply to board members who are elected under.
So Mr. Egoff's class
Right.
is
That
the last
class that can do
nonpartisan.
that. Gotcha. What if you're unaffiliated?
I would have to check to see what the law says about that. I'm not sure.
Okay. And does the Board of Ed, once that does come into effect, have to accept the Republican or the Democratic nominee that they put forward? Or is the board that's sitting there able to say, no, we don't want that person, bring in somebody else?
Again, I need to check the law that will be in effect at that time.
Okay. But for now, that doesn't really matter.
Correct. Not for this, not for your purposes now.
Not for this
Right.
discussion.
But the bottom line is, we get to decide who or if we're going to replace Shay, which, that's something we need to decide. I would think if going by our policy, it says we need to do that in a timely manner. So I would think we would want to do that. My question is to you, Cynthia, if we decide to take applications and conduct interviews with applicants, is the screening process and the interview process public?
The interview process is public
That's what I
because I have done this previously. I do not remember how they screened them out. I was not involved in that
I
because
just
that
wondered
was
about the
board,
screening.
that was board's action.
I do remember that conversation occurring, and it would be, I believe Mr. Campbell said it would need to be in public.
I can't think of a reason that it would not be in public. I can't think of any law that would make it.
Ms. Lopez, I know the interview is. I know that part. And if memory serves me correctly, the only time I've been involved in that was when someone moved and they didn't have a lot of applications, so they went ahead and interviewed the entire pool. At that time, I think there were 4 people, if memory serves me correctly.
Can we take applications and not interview, just appoint from those applicants?
You can.
Okay.
My question is on timing. So if a board member states their last day is going to be November 30th, at what point are we legally supposed to make this decision as to who we want to replace?
So if the resignation is effective November 30, then you could appoint someone who would replace that board member December 1, as long as their term extended through that effective December 1, yes.
And we could do that at any time between now and,
So legally, we could appoint someone when there's not even a vacancy yet.
It would be prospective, but with an effective date. Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah.
So, yes.
I was asking about
Yes.
timing.
Yes.
But you could not appoint unless the letter is in
That's-
declaring the vacancy.
That's right, unless you have.
The board member who's vacating has to take the first action.
okay.
Are we held to any time for how long it takes us to appoint someone?
Well, your policy says immediately. You also have the possibility that you're not able to, that you have a tie vote and you're not able to select someone, and the law nor your policy really address that. So effectively, no, although your policy does say immediately. It doesn't define immediately, however.
And then another question, if I was going to say I was going to resign effective November 30, I would still have a vote.
You know, it does say the remaining board members. The argument would be, I mean, as long as you're still on the board on that date, then if the board takes a vote after the effective date of your resignation, then you certainly would not.
That's correct. But if it was held before it, I would still be a sitting board member, and I would still get a vote if it was held before November 30.
You know, I'm going to take a look and see if I can find anything on that to make sure.
That's good, because
I feel like if it says there has to be a vacancy, and then it would be the remaining. So to me, I don't see how there's even a question that he would ever even be considered in a vote.
Except that it might be contemplating that the vote takes place after he's no longer a member. And that's what I don't know. So that's what I'd like to research.
Fun.
So might I suggest asking your attorney any questions you need her to look up between now?
I think it would be extremely helpful to know, because to me, our policy, whether the law states or not, our policy clearly says the remaining, and I don't think there's any gray area. I think that means those that are still on the board after he resigns. So, I mean, I would like to know definitively legally what that means, but I think according to our policy, that you wouldn't get a vote. And I would think that of like, if it was me stepping down, I would also say, I don't get a vote, but I don't.
But that's what we need to find out. Because if that was the case, there wouldn't be a tie. Because you'd have 7 voting, and that's why it's interesting, or an interesting question that needs to be answered.
Mr. Egoff, I don't know if this is appropriate to ask you, but do you have any timeline as to when you're going to submit that resignation in writing? Because we can't do anything until we do have it in writing. Do we have to, we don't have to approve that resignation or anything, right?
What if we say, no, you can't resign?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say something else to you. Not off air.
He has to. You can't hold 2 offices at the same time. So
That's
you
right.
have to resign from one of them, or not accept the other one. Fun?
Then you find out who he likes the most.
I guess tender the resignation and then date it whenever you want to date it, and then this board will go from there.
How much time you got?
Well, I think to Kathy's point, Dr. Revis's point, we can't do anything until you move. So we're just kind of like waiting.
Waiting for you, Jay.
But you know it's coming. It can come tonight. I mean, so, you know.
I would just like some of the legal clarification. Like, I don't
That's-
think there was a lot of legal clarity with timing. To me, it just blows my mind that we could vote ahead of time of like, hey, I'm going to resign in 3 months, and we're all going to go ahead and, like, it just seems odd that that would be legally how it stands. And maybe I'm wrong, but I would like to know. I feel like there's just a lot of gray area, and I would like to know definitively.
So that's the great part of having Ms. Lopez here, because she takes really good notes, and she can turn this around fairly quickly, I would think, especially the more specific questions that you have. So if there are any others, I don't mean to take this over, but please let her know.
Anything else?
And Jay, thank you for your service.
Thank you. You're welcome. On to board superintendent's reports. Mr. Garrett, capital projects update.
Meaning Carl's notes. So we do have several updates. We're getting excited about a couple of things here that we'll be able to share. The projects we're going to talk about this evening, we've got the HCPS gymnasium HVAC projects. So at East Henderson High School, we're still awaiting the units to be delivered and set. That's set to take place in the next couple of weeks. HVAC at North Henderson High School is completed, and they have cool conditioned air for their volleyball. Coach Moon is not complaining, and I don't think anyone else is. If you've been in the upper level there at North Henderson High School at any time of the year, but especially this time of the year, it is making a big difference. The West Henderson units should be online this week. So they're they're installed, everything's in place, they're undergoing final inspection there. I'm sorry, the startup will be next week. So the 16th will be when they do that startup, not this week. Questions on that? All right, MRTS projects that we've been discussing for the year. HVAC replacement phase 1 at Atkinson. That is in progress. A majority of the interior work has been completed. The rooftop units are being set. Projected startup will be around the 1st of October, which means that your hallways and everything for the first time should have the same kind of heat and air that the interior rooms have. They'll demo the old units after school hours and on the weekends. So when they have to come into the actual rooms to demo those old units that are in there, it is in the contract that they'll do that when students are not on campus. And then preparing phase 2 to go out to bid relatively soon. Found some MRTS funds that we're able to go ahead with that phase 2. And while we've got the momentum and the design work that has been done, we're going to go ahead and work with the county and do that. So this is West Henderson new front office building, and we know that building connection. They are up out of the ground everywhere. The front office is now inhabited. So the new office space is not the new entrance, but the new office spaces. This right here is a picture of the new entrance. They're getting prepared for paint and to put the drop wing Falcon on the picture on the left. You see that they have poured the floor in the new secure entry that is coming at the end of that walkway there, the covered walkway. So that will give you a well-defined entrance there for the first time in that building's history. This is the office space and the interior. So what you're looking at is one of the offices that was redone. And we took some funding out of our capital to match the flooring and match the work that was going on in there, because they were only touching the reconfiguration of the middle part of the offices. So we wanted to make sure that it all matched, ceiling grid and everything else, so that when you go in it is cohesive. And then you see the center hallway there. That is coming out of that secure vestibule, so you can either go left as a student through the courtyard and into the other buildings, or you can come straight this way and stay connected in the building as well. And then on the right are the redone bathrooms there. This is actually, there are actually 3 of those that have been redone, 2 standalone units, and then one that is in the actual health room now. So the nurse's office has a bathroom, health room, sick room, accommodation suite. This is the connector behind the gym that will have the additional student bathrooms, additional standalone individual bathrooms. That way it can be faculty, student, whomever, which is a big need at that school. And this is also where they will tie the X building into the remainder of the facility, meaning that the students will no longer have to exit the building to traverse every room in that building. So making really, really good progress there. You see some window frames, some door frames that are being delivered. So the office suite is occupied with the exception of the front entrance, and then the backside is taking shape as you see some pours. They've had the dry weather has not been great on everybody else, but it's been really good for construction. Be glad to answer any questions.
Questions?
Still on track this semester. Hopefully we will have this all completed sometime early in second semester for the students to use.
That's great. Thank you, sir. Accountability report. Dr. Marlowe, how are you, ma'am? Good to see you.
All right, this is always kind of a nerve-wracking time of year for administrators and principals, and you know, just like any kind of assessment that you do, you look to see what you do really well in and what do you still need to work on. So we're going to dive right in. We had 17 out of our 23 schools this year that met or exceeded their growth targets. We also had 17 out of 23 last year, but it was a different 17 out of 23. So if you see an asterisk beside the school, that means that they exceeded growth targets last year. The other schools that are listed there, Drysdale, Hendersonville Elementary, Mills River, Upward, and Flat Rock Middle, are new to the list. All of these schools are on the exceeded growth list for the year. And I just want to point out, look at North Henderson. I mean, moving kids along, 9.57% of growth. That's pretty amazing. We've got some high threes, a 4 down there for early college. Those teachers are just rocking it. And those kids are there to show what they know, so they really grew. And then I did this slide a little bit different this year because I want you to be able to see where we were last year. Keep in mind that school grades, which is the accountability program that we are still using this year, is 80% proficiency factored in with 20% of the growth. So the slide you just saw showed the growth. When you factor in the proficiency, we have 1 A school, 8 B schools, 7 C schools, and 6 D schools. And if you'll look, there's 1 school that dropped from a B to a C. That's the one difference from last school year. So even though we had more schools that exceeded growth. If you want to break down what those school grades actually look like, you can see here the elementary schools and where they ranked. The 1 school that shifted position is Etowah Elementary, and all the others stayed in the same spot this year. If you look at middle school, there are no changes to that list. That's where they were last year. And then if you are looking at high school, the only change is actually the Career Academy. They moved from progressing to maintaining, which is not a huge difference. It means that they are still kind of playing the course. So then if you want to see kind of where we fit in, I did a little graphic here just to show in terms of our region. We were 31st last year in the state. If you are looking at where we fall in terms of the region, you can see where we run compared to the other folks in our region. We are 30th this year. We managed to gain 1 bump up. So we're headed in the right direction. We're just not headed there as quickly as some of us would like it. And I know that teachers and principals who've been working really hard this past year would say the same thing. But these results came out last Wednesday, so we are in the process of digging into the data, figuring out what steps are next. You'll also see down below, grade level proficient are your students that scored 3s, 4s, and 5s on the end of grade test. College and career ready are the 4s and 5s. So that's why that number is always a little bit smaller. You'll see that if we're looking at this number of students who scored 3s, 4s, and 5s, we're at 57.4%. Last year we were just a few tenths higher, which was 57.9, but the state was 3 points higher. And when I started looking, one of the things, like I said, we've just started digging in, it looked like everybody dropped just a tad across the state, which was just kind of interesting. But so 4-year cohort graduation date is also part of those accountability standards. And we, as a district, I think some of you may have heard Mr. Garrett talk about this before, we are almost back to where we were several years ago. We bumped up this year from 90.3% graduation rate to 92.8%. And a lot of that has to do with the growth that those schools made. East Henderson High School bumped up quite a bit. And I will say, knowing the team over there, they are working really hard and putting some very specific strategies in place to make sure that they are working with families to get kids diplomas. And I'd say that across the board for all of them. So we're continuing to bump up those numbers. The one thing that we have not had a chance to dig into really deeply yet is this designation, the designations that come up every year. So we do not have any comprehensive school improvement, what they call CSI schools. We've not had any of those in a couple of years, and this year is no different. We did add a school. Is that right? Yeah, we added North Henderson to that TSI list, but Hillendale came off that list. So the schools that are listed on the left are schools where they have subgroups that show a larger gap between all students and whatever subgroup. Typically, our subgroups are students with disabilities and English learners, but that's not always the case. So we're still digging into those right now with schools. We have some schools that are doing some very targeted professional development for differentiation in the classroom. And quite honestly, one of the things that we're seeing really good growth with is the Project GLAD program that Ms. Swartenberger shared earlier. That right there, getting that academic language in, an opportunity for students to really engage with vocabulary and understanding how to take a test, what you need to know about assessment, is one of the things that really helps kids be able to tackle any kind of assessment, but be able to tackle their content and their standards, and empower them to be able to do what they need to do. So last year was year 2, I believe, of the low performing schools program that the state is doing. Last year we had 6 schools. Upward and Flat Rock Middle came off that list, and you probably remember they were on the first slide where they exceeded growth. That allowed them to come off the list. So this year we have 4 low performing schools, so that's Dana, Edneyville, Hill and Dale, and Apple Valley Middle. And what I will say, when they say low performing, those are schools that have the designation of low performing. There are amazing things going on in those buildings. One of the things that we've been doing the last couple of days is trying to figure out, like, what are things that we've already put in place? Because we already know what direction we're headed. So what are things that we've already put in place to address some of these things? So a lot of these schools already have things rolling along that will help get them out of these designations. So we actually, just a few minutes ago, actually got an invitation. There is more webinar information coming up about what steps will need to be taken. And if I remember correctly, we will be back up here next month to give you specific information about the next steps that we have to take for schools that are designated low performing. This year there is something called recurring low performing, and since this is the 3rd year of the low performing designations, we do have schools, if they've been low performing, had a low performing designation for 2 of those 3 years, then they would be on that list. And so you'll hear more about those next month.
Okay, so Dr. Marlowe, let me make
Yes.
sure I understand this. TSI means
Targeted school improvement, and the targeted comes from the fact that there are subgroups that will need to be addressed, yes.
Whereas low performing is based on a combination of performance and growth.
Yes, and they, typically it's if you're a D and you could be a D school and you could meet growth and you could still be on that designation list. But certainly if you were a D school and you did not meet growth, you would be on that designation list.
So a great example, if you'll go back one slide, is over the last 2 years, Apple Valley Middle's overall performance grade has increased 6 points. They've met growth. They're still considered low performing, but they're sitting at with 54 points. 55 is a C. So as they continue to march forward, we expect them to continue off that list. Edneyville this year jumped up several points.
They did.
As well. So that 80-20 mix is really tough when you're making growth, especially on the positive side of growth, 0 or to the right of the scale, as you know, as you're well aware. It's inordinately the performance side. So that's what we're dealing with there when we're looking at performance versus growth. What our strategic plan talks about is 100% of our kids will make growth. And if 100% of our kids continue to make growth, you'll see those scores continue to march forward.
80% of that score is on the EOG that is at the end of the year, that one test.
Yes,
Right.
EOG and EOC.
That's kind of crazy.
So we have been advocating for a 50-50 model.
Or flip them.
Right, but at least for a 50-50 model, or to have 3 grades. You'd have a performance grade, a growth grade, and an overall grade. That has not made any headway at this time.
They wonder why kids have test anxiety, right?
That's why. It's very, it's a lot of pressure on kids. It's a lot of pressure on teachers and administrators. And so quite honestly, it's about maintaining and understanding that, you know what, it's just about finding out what you know. So that's a good message, but it's hard not to get wrapped up in it. So we work really hard with teachers to let them know, like, we'll work through this. You just keep working hard.
So it's been 80-20 for how many years now?
Since they started the letter grades. So,
2013, 2014.
yeah, that was my first year as a superintendent.
So you said that you have been advocating for 50-50.
The state
With the state.
superintendent, the current state superintendent has also advocated for a 50-50 model. But this is in law. This is General Assembly. This is not state board. This is in statute, the 80-20 model.
Do we know the statute number?
115C something. I just have to find it for you. It's all 115C.
Okay. I think we all need to know that, and I agree. I think it should kind of like switch a little bit. So pardon me if I'm asking out of turn here. You're bringing us more data next month.
The data that comes next month is specific. There are guidelines that have to do with schools that are designated low performing. So we have a webinar coming up just a couple weeks where they will detail exactly what has to happen with those schools. And having been through this last year, off the top of my head, I can remember there are some things around teacher observations that are embedded in there. There's a recommendation that Mr.
Principal
Garrett has
plans.
to make about the principals. So, yes. So those, we will be detailing all of those. We will bring that back to you. In fact, if I remember correctly, you will be seeing that on the agenda the next 3 months.
Couple of things with their school improvement plans have to be in place.
I think it's really unfortunate that, our schools have to be graded on the scale, because I think we can all agree growth is really where it's at, and just because you don't do well on a test, there's so many things that can contribute to your ability to how well to take a test. So I just want it to be known that myself and all the board, we don't consider any of our schools to be low performing, and we can all agree that the scale is really not fair. And so I care way more about growth, and I care way more about, the culture we have here and how we treat our kids than the grade. I'm not saying we don't look at it and analyze it and work on it and have goals, but I don't put a lot of weight on that. So I just want to make sure that that's known, and so.
And we appreciate that. And one of the things that we tell everybody is you keep working on growth. Growth will get you to proficiency. So just keep working on growing kids.
And I will make the offer to anyone that if they want to come walk through these schools, I will escort them and let them see what we're doing, because there's a lot of great things going on. These are numbers we've got to work on. This is one of the measurements that reflects what we do, but it's certainly not the only measurement and the only measure of quality. And you know that from being in the schools, and I would offer a tour to anyone.
And I will say it does help having a district strategic plan. So thank you for the work that you put into that, because we know that schools use that as a guiding light as they are figuring out what their needs are. So in November, when we are bringing you their school improvement plans, it's really nice to know that there's something for them to latch onto at the district level that will help support that work. And that's part of that alignment that we've been working very hard to build. So, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Sosha, again.
No, real quick one.
They may not let you off the hook quickly, Mr. Sosha.
Financial report for local current expense and other restricted through August 31st. Revenues this year so far at $7,226,000, and our expenditures are at $5,508,000. Where we are compared to last year, our revenues are up $415,000, and our expenditures are up $517,000, as we anticipated, because we're going that direction. But we are moving along. We had our first full payroll with teachers in it in August. In September, we'll get our first payroll with all of our 10-month non-certified. So we're rocking and rolling. Thank you much.
Thank you. Mr. Garrett, General Operations.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, those present and listening online, it's my pleasure to share the operations report for this month. September is Attendance Awareness Month. We will have several things coming out over the next few days and weeks about why attendance matters and how every piece matters. And getting off to a great start attendance-wise has a big impact, not only year to year, but over the course of a student's career. Plus, we want to see them, so get them to school. September 12th, Superintendent Teacher Advisory Council and our Parent Advisory Council are inaugural meetings of the year. That'll be this Thursday. The 15th through the September 15th through October 15th is National Hispanic Heritage Month. So we will celebrate that in the district over the course of those 2-month sections. We have the intersession break coming up for our Flex Calendar schools, September 16th through the 4th. I always ask them not to gloat too much when they go on their 3-week break, but that does not always work, and I don't know that I blame them. October is National School Principal Month and National Physical Therapy Month. October 2nd is National Custodial Workers Recognition Day, and that's my favorite thing to remind folks. Let me take a day off and let a custodian take a day off and see who you miss first. It's not me. So we appreciate all the job that those support staff members do all across the district. October 9th, there will be your next round of school tours where we will be going to see Bruce Drysdale, Mills River, and Flat Rock. So you'll get to see the flooring at Flat Rock for those of you who are on that rotation. October 10th is World Mental Health Day. October 14th, it was the annual Ebb Foundation Golf Classic at Champion Hills. Because that is the day, our regular board meeting will be on the 15th. So we will meet on the Tuesday, the second Tuesday in October, so as not to interfere with that golf tournament there. October 14th through 18th is National School Lunch Week. October 14th is also an optional teacher workday, no school for students on traditional and early college calendar. October 15th is a required teacher workday, district professional development day, so no school for students on traditional and early calendar. And then the 21st to the 27th is the NC Countdown to College Application Week. So that's the week that students can fill out that Common App at no cost to them. So there will be lots of things going on around the district, and hopefully this year the FAFSA might be a little cleaner. It can't be any worse. It can't be any worse than what it was. Nothing like having a senior during last year's simplified FAFSA. But for the sake of time, I will move on from that conversation and just say we will remain ever hopeful moving into this year. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you for allowing me to share.
Any other questions, comments? Take a motion to adjourn. Second. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Any opposed? No. Motion carries. Thank you. Have a good day.